Good evening. This is Sunday night, and it just dawned on me that this is the uh, next to the last of the Sunday night update introduction videos because we are about to enter week 7, and a lot has gone on in the course of this class, and it is now down to the last quarter, and time to do things again just a little differently. So let's touch first on some of the operational issues as to what's going on and what is going on. And the first is perhaps the best news I can give you about the course in week 7. In week 7, if you haven't looked ahead, nice little thing is going on. There's no discussion board. And you might say, why is that? Nothing worth discussing? Well, that's not quite the case. What's going on is it's time to really concentrate on putting the finishing touches and the last really heavy lifting, if you will, on the group project. So that's why we don't do a discussion in week 7, where we're discussing the topics for the week. What we're looking at in this time period is for you to be really doing the last big push on the group project. So that's both I guess we could say both good and bad news. Let's look at what we've talked about in the last week. The last week, week 6, spent the time on the whole idea of, if you will, organizational collaboration, or how are we organizing for success? What are we doing? And you looked at how combinations and control of resources and control of assets, vertical integration, horizontal integration, how do you put things together in order to accomplish the strategies that are going to take you to the achievement of your mission and vision? And we're going to take it a little step further this week, and it's actually a concept that some of you may have looked at. I know some of you have looked at already because you've mentioned it in your group work, and it does tie in nicely with all the Baldrige stuff that we've been doing. But this week we really want you to look at the whole stakeholder process. You know, who is a stakeholder? Well, my definition of a stakeholder is anybody who is materially affected by the operation of your business. Whatever you do affects not just one or two groups, it affects many people. And one of the best examples I have of this, an old consulting client of mine, a company that he ran was about 75 employees, and they were a service business, servicing other businesses. And when I was first getting started with him, George was his name, sat back in one of our initial interviews about strategic thinking and everything. He said, "Well, I look at it as I'm responsible for about 300 people here." And I said, 300 people? How so? How do you figure that? You've only got 75 employees. He said, "Yeah, but they have families. And many of these people are the prime earner in their family. Those people, those family members are definitely dependent on the decisions that I make, that my colleagues and I make, the things that we do, the things that we plan to do." George understood the concept of stakeholder. Okay, those families of his employees were stakeholders of his business. Okay, just like his suppliers are, just like his customers are, just like the customers of his customers. It's anybody who is materially affected by what you do. So that's a really important concept. And we're going to start, as you go through this week, look at that and relate it back to the work you've been doing on your group project. Okay, relate it back to, say, what's going on with Family Fabrics and who are the stakeholders. Many of you have touched on this already. But it's an important piece of analysis, because if you can determine who your prime stakeholders are, then you start to focus your plans and your thinking even more than if you're just looking at the organization itself. So this is a very important week, and it ties very nicely, as you can see, with the Baldrige work we've been doing. Because if you really look down the list of those Baldrige principles, the Baldrige core values, that's pretty much a stakeholder-focused list. You know, we talk about employees and valuing creating value and the voice of the customer and societal responsibility. What could be more stakeholder oriented than those concepts? So the Baldrige work is really now coming to an end and tying things up. So that's really where we're going this week. It's not much more difficult than that. But as with anything else I've been preaching all semester, guess what? A lot of this stuff is simple, but it's not easy. A lot of folks have found that out as we've tried to do the group project, as we've gone through things. So, you know, one thing I would like to mention, I think I've seen a progression in the weekly Baldrige assignments where people are really starting to apply these ideas in some very interesting ways and to see how they fit into the work the material we've been presenting and into the work you're doing as a group. So that's very encouraging to me. The groups, some of them finally got cranking. This is good, okay? And I've been in contact with many of you about the progress of the group, both positively and sometimes to do a little prodding. So those take to heart what's been said to you privately. The idea is, like I said, one last time, it's to produce collaboratively a product, okay? And the product is a strategic plan, a strategic direction for this company that suffered this great disaster. And you will be presenting it both in a written form, that's the executive summary, and in a presentational form. And the quality needs to be of a level if you were presenting it to a board of directors or a governmental agency or somebody or a group of stakeholders whose interest and maybe ability to help you will be influenced by your strategic thinking, or their interest will be influenced or affected by the results of your strategic plan. Well, think of the quality of presentation you'd have to make to that group, and that's what we expect. All right, so the questions have been showing up on the Ask the Instructor discussion board, and I've tried to be as prompt as I can with everything else that goes on towards the end of a mod, and also some other pressing projects on campus. I'm no different than anybody else. Daily work does go on. So I think we're caught up on most of the grades. As I said, there won't be a discussion board this week. There is the Baldrige assignment as usual. Work in your groups. Make sure you're in communication with each other. Make sure that that project is trending towards a level of quality and a level of completion that you can be happy with at the end of week 7. Okay? And if there are any questions, of course, please get in touch with me. Okay, thanks again, and